I'm Dr. Nicole LePera, the Holistic Psychologist, founder of SelfHealers Circle, a virtual membership community where individuals join together to take healing into their own hands. New York Times Bestselling author, my new book out, Reparenting the Inner Child.
Reparenting for lasting transformation.
Reparenting the inner child is beginning to step in as a compassionate, nurturing, caring adult, perhaps an adult that you never had present in your life. And now in modern society, reparenting, in my opinion, is more important than ever because a lot of the habits and patterns that many of us have carried from our childhood out of protection are rewarded in society, whether it's the overachiever who's exhausting themselves trying to gain value or worth in their actions that is rewarded by a lot of the society around us who sees that as drive, who sees that as ambition. Whether or not it was, the person who is more shut down in a moment of conflict is being termed as easy, low maintenance. And a lot of those actions, I think, are rewarded again in society as it is currently, that aren't actually healthy for us as individuals. So as we think about our inner child and a journey of reparenting, I think naturally it can be a little confusing of where to start, how much of my past I need to be aware of to even get started. And the most practical, powerful place to start is right here, right now. Again, it's less about the story or the details of what happened and more about what is happening. The most foundational practice to support reparenting is to begin to honor the presence of our past in our current moment. And to do that, the number one practice I'm always talking about, especially in my membership SelfHealers Circle, is beginning to develop a conscious awareness of ourself day to day. And that can look as simple as what I call beginning a practice of daily conscious check-ins, which is setting maybe an alarm on your phone for 1 to 2 times a day, or maybe pairing this practice with something you already do every day, drinking your coffee in the morning or something that you do before bed at night. And what the practice really looks like is in that moment that the alarm goes off or you're taking a moment to pause and to refocus your attention, not on what's happening in the world around you, but back to yourself. Beginning to notice how you feel in your body. How is your breathing? How are your muscles? Are you feeling at ease in your body in that moment? And beginning to notice what the thoughts are that are going through your mind. The more we begin to practice consciousness in moments where we're not having a reaction, we can begin to build the bridge then to the moments where we need to show up differently in those more reactionary or flooded moments. But the practice begins, again, as all things will, with awareness, with locating ourself in real time, perhaps in an adult body in different circumstances, to remind our inner child that the circumstances have changed. I have things available to me now. Perhaps I can begin to have my needs met in a new way. And that's what reparenting actually is. It's a practice of learning how to show up in a new way in support of those deeper underlying unmet needs. Reparenting is different from coping. Coping is a way, a means to get through each moment, to continue to allow life to function around us without actually changing what's driving a lot of these dysfunctional habits or patterns. And that's what reparenting actually allows us to do. It allows us to show up in the moment in a new way. So say, for instance, you're waiting for a response text back or an email, and a lot of time is going by. Right? Coping in that moment, you might feel your body begin to elevate with a sense of urgency. And as per that urgency, you might begin to fire off text or rethink your statement, whatever you said last to them, overanalyzing what your response is, or convincing yourself even that they must be upset with you. That is why they are not responding to you. Where reparenting might look like noticing that urgency building in your chest, beginning to relax the muscles that you might be tensing, beginning to slow the quickening breath that you might be noticing, and giving yourself just a moment of pause before you react in that old way so that, again, you can teach yourself a new experience in that moment, which might be distance doesn't mean disconnection, doesn't mean rejection or abandonment. Instead of just coping with the moment and easing the discomfort as quickly as possible by trying to reestablish connection. So the more we practice in those moments of connecting with ourselves, of regulating our body, of our nervous system in a new way, we're actually reversing that pattern and we're beginning to strengthen the pathway to our prefrontal cortex so that we can continue then to show up in a more grounded, more reasonable, more responsive way into the future. So there are a lot of misconceptions about reparenting. A really common one is that reparenting is a blaming of the parents. Reparenting actually isn't blaming parents or our past at all. It's simply acknowledging the impact that our past is still having on our present moment. Another really common misconception about reparenting is that it's bringing us back in time or it's keeping us stuck in our childhood experiences, when in reality, our nervous system is already doing that. Reparenting is our opportunity to update those past programs into ones that are more aligned with the future that we want to live and to create for ourselves. Another common, I think, misconception about reparenting and really healing in general is that it can be immediate. And that is just simply not the case. It took years for us, multiple repeated interactions or experiences for all of these patterns to form. So change equally is going to take time, consistent practices of new choices, though the byproduct is true and lasting transformation. When we begin to reparent ourselves internally, we develop a greater capacity to deal with stressful experiences. Our nervous system doesn't immediately react into a state that feels overwhelming or out of control. We learn how to navigate our reactions. We learn how to downshift or recover more quickly when we do feel stressed out so that we can remain calm and grounded and in choice as opposed to in reaction. The most important step of reparenting is to remind ourselves of the present moment that we're in and of the safety that is available in any given moment. So really helpful daily practices are something as simple as just taking a look around our current space or our current environment and maybe taking a moment to note 3 to 5 neutral objects or even comforting, safe objects that you might see presently available. Another really helpful practice is to slow our breathing, slow our movement. All of those slowing downs activate our parasympathetic nervous system, sending signals of safety to us now. Acknowledgement is really helpful when we can understand what is happening instead of shaming the reaction that we're having in a moment, reminding ourselves that we are safe in this moment, that it's an old reaction, not negating what we're feeling. Understanding it can help us be more grounded, more present, and more in a compassionate state of awareness as opposed to a shameful, disconnecting state that many of us often go into at the first sign of stress. One of the main things that you will gain from this reparenting journey is you will increase your capacity to deal with life's stressful, upsetting moments. You'll gain a sense of resilience where you can stay grounded and intentional in choice, regardless of how you feel or what's happening around you. And it also gives you the ability to expand your awareness and your experience of all of the different parts that make us who we are, including our inner child, because it's still with us today. Not only does it contain all of the trauma and unmet needs, but it's actually a very beautiful space of creativity and joy and playfulness. So the ultimate goal of this work is not to separate ourselves from what happened or the parts that are uncomfortable. It's actually to wholeheartedly embrace all that is who we are. And on this journey to get started, it's really learning the moments where our body is becoming stressed, because those are the moments where those older patterns are going to come to the surface. So even just taking moments throughout your day to, when you're doing those conscious check-ins, noticing how high your stress is feeling, meaning the more tension you're holding in your muscles, the quicker your breath is, the faster your heart rate, the more stressed your body is under. So in those moments, beginning to teach yourself how to calm down, maybe by pausing what you're doing, taking a walk, again, slowing your breath, slowing your movement, that's increasing your capacity by helping your body come down from a stressful experience. And that's what we want to do, is we want to have a lot of capacity to deal with more and more stress. In addition, of course, to acknowledging those moments are probably a moment where your inner child has been activated. There's probably something similar happening in your environment or the way you're feeling in your body that is contributing to why you're having that level of a reaction. So these practices really help us do both things at once, which is understand the body's role of our past, how it's coloring our present through increased stress and reactivity, but it's also psychologically and emotionally making space for all of these different parts, our past, our present, and our future. Emotionally and relationally, we feel more calm and grounded. We begin to engage with other people relationally in a more grounded way. We show up more authentically. We're better able to directly communicate our wants and needs. We can shift out of all of those different roles of the caretaker or the overachiever in our relationship, where we're fixing everything, into a state where our sole focus becomes remaining authentically connected. We no longer just worry about losing the people around us. We actually assess whether or not we feel safe and authentic when we're around the people around us. I think a natural byproduct of this journey for a lot of us, those of us who have parents that are still living, is to bring our learnings, bring our awareness, and have conversations, bring it back to our parents. And it's really important, obviously, to understand, of course, if we have access to our parents, right, that not all of the time might we get the exact reaction that we want to receive from our parents. Of course, we want to be able to share with them the impact that our past have had, their actions or inactions, and we want to hear compassion. We want to hear them validate our experience. We want to hear them having space for how it was for us. And while some of us might receive that, not all of us will receive that from our parents, because our parents are humans too, right? They become stuck in their beliefs, their perspectives, how things were for them. And many can feel very defensive or attacked, especially when they tried their very best in a very well-meaning way to show up in care of each of us. So it's important to understand and ask ourselves what the expectation is that we're having when we're engaging in conversation. Because of course we all want to have understanding and validation, but can we make space for the possibility that we might not fully get that from our loved ones, our parents especially? So is it enough for me to validate my own experience, even if what I'm hearing on the other side isn't what I had wanted to see or to hear from my parents? And ultimately, us being honest, whether or not they give us the reaction that we want, whether or not it brings us closer to our parents and eventually they're able to hear us in a future, what we're doing is we're validating our inner child. So we will have a different experience of that interaction, one where we maybe had a voice for the first time, where we didn't have a voice when we were, of course, in childhood. A really common experience that many of us have when we learn new information and begin to implement new information in our lives is we very excitedly want those around us, our loved ones, especially our parents, to get on board, to gain the same perspective or awareness, and to use the tools, show up differently, especially if we're gaining the value of them ourselves. Though the reality of it is, as many of us realize when we begin to change ourselves, change is hard. It takes a daily commitment. It takes action. It takes walking through discomfort, creating capacity where there wasn't. And the reality is, for a lot of us, our parents, change is too hard, right? They've become so stuck in their ways that it becomes too unfamiliar. The new information is too much and the new actions are overwhelming. So having that awareness, especially when we're feeling frustrated that someone doesn't see how exciting this information is, or they're not doing the steps that we know that they would benefit so greatly from. Again, we have to understand that while our nervous system can create incredible transformation, growth, and change, it actually prefers the familiar habits, the repeated patterns, because it gains a false sense of security. So knowing that might give us a little bit more compassion for the person in our life who's struggling to hear new information or integrate new information. And if you are that person, right, struggling to do something about what it is that you're learning, having that level of compassion as well, right? It is so difficult to translate insight into action because we're challenging our body, our nervous system's capacity. We're pushing ourselves a little closer, right, out of our zone of comfort and tolerance into that zone of stress. And if we don't have the tools or the ability to deal with stress, we're going to repeat the old patterns and then feel even more shameful and more broken. So the practical then step is to break whatever it is intention that you want to set for yourself down into the smallest, most accessible choice possible, and then still knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone. In my community, SelfHealers Circle, we talk every month about a concept called a small daily promise. It's really emphasizing the smallness of the choices that we can stay committed to, because the bigger the choice, even though naturally, if we discover that our life is, not functioning the way we want it, it's so natural to want to reform our life, reshape our life, 24 hours. But then the more new we're doing, the more stressed we become. So it's the smallness of the promise, staying committed in action, anticipating that it will be uncomfortable, and then showing up through discomfort time and time again, not shaming ourselves when we fall back into old habits, but giving ourselves every new opportunity to create and maintain that new choice. One idea that I hope anyone would take away from this conversation is an awareness of where we've come from and why we are the way we are today. And at whatever age that you come to this awareness, I would say that you are a step ahead of so many other people on this planet. So many people will live and die living in autopilot, repeating patterns that don't serve them. So awareness is something to be celebrated, not to be shamed, because awareness to some extent is a sense of readiness. And we can't change what we're not even aware is present. So having that moment and seeing ourselves in action or knowing the patterns that we continue to repeat that don't serve us is the foundation upon which we build then new choices or new action points. And there's never a kind of concept, or it's never a too late. It's a opportunity at any moment that you become aware to show up in a new way and create ultimately a new future for yourself.
Want to support the channel? Join the Big Think members community where you get access to videos early, ad-free.